This is like if Sidney Crosby had to go to college. He's the LeBron James of hockey. Gavin McKenna is officially a Nittany Lion, and Penn State still might not be finished.
You are Locked On Nittany Lions, your daily podcast on the Penn State Nittany Lions. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are locked on to Penn State men's hockey. And as always, thank you so much for checking out another edition of Locked On Nittany Lions, your daily source for all things Penn State sports. My name is Zach Seyko, and I'm your host of the show, credentialed media member for both Penn State football and Penn State wrestling. He is as plugged into Penn State hockey as anybody else. Color commentator for the broadcast team, Eric Ohlson, joins the show again as a special guest. And now that it's actually official, there's no more speculation. Gavin McKenna, generational prospect, to say the least, is committed to Penn State. We're also going to talk about how Penn State might not be finished, that other players could still join this loaded team between the transfer portal and other prior commitments. And other people are saying that this is bad for college hockey. We're going to address all of it, beginning with Eric. Gavin McKenna, the presence that he is and what he brings to Penn State. I mean, he does everything at an elite level. Help, if you can find a weakness in his game, please do share it. But he can score, he can assist, he's a facilitator, he can take over games, and he wasn't even drafted in this cycle. No, he is the top prospect for 2026. So he's still a young and upcoming player that still can only get better. Eric, what does this mean in the minds of what he'll in terms of what he will bring to the ice in Hockey Valley?
I mean, it's a game changer for sure. And these types of players don't come around very often. You have a guy who has been identified since he was a kid, basically, a young teenager, as someone who is going to make a name in hockey. And you can compare that to names like Crosby and McDavid, some of these players who, there's people in Canada that obviously follow this religiously, looking for those young players and trying to identify them. He's talked about like those two, where you just know from that young age, you can see something that he is going to be a generational type player. And the fact that he's going to be a Nittany Lion is still kind of surreal. That we are going to get to watch Gavin McKenna play hockey at Penn State and have an impact on college hockey. And it changes the fabric of college hockey. And the rule change did already with CHL players being able to come to college, and so much talent now coming in to these different programs. But to have a player like him, it just changes everything. Like imagine if a 17-year-old Sidney Crosby went to a school in the United States for a year before he got drafted by Pittsburgh. Like you can't even picture it. Connor McDavid, he played for the Erie Otters in the OHL and then got drafted by the Oilers, and we know the rest is history with him. So he got to play in the United States, de facto, because he was in Erie, but the Otters play in the OHL, so part of the CHL. And to have a guy like this come to a university is just going to be a tremendous impact, not only on Penn State, but I think just college hockey in general and hockey in the United States. There are players who are going to get to watch him as Penn State travels around this season. And all eyes in the hockey universe are going to be on Gavin McKenna and now on Penn State because of that. So I saw some tweets earlier today that there's people in Canada that probably didn't know anything about Penn State. Well, they do now because Gavin McKenna's going there.
That's the kind of bridge, I guess, culturally speaking, to an extent, because hockey is certainly going to be, I think, a lot more appreciated in Canada as opposed to what it is in the United States, even though the NHL is based, primarily in the United States. However, though, there's definitely that bridge now, and Penn State is going to be in a spotlight here for hockey, which comes with pressure, expectations. I've already gone on the record to say that this is the most talented team in program history. That's not a hot take. That's objectively speaking with the players. And like I said, we're going to address the fact that more players could join Gavin McKenna still. Eric, he's going to be on the first line. He's going to be the center. So what does this do ultimately for the rotation and how this team starts to look with those first few lines?
Yeah, it's a good question because I don't really know. Just talking with some people yesterday as, the official announcement happened on Sports Center, and we're trying to put our heads together like, what's this lineup even going to look like? Because there's so much talent. There's so many good players.
They're loaded.
Yeah, and thinking back to the BU game in the Frozen Four, that was a winnable game for Penn State. They played well, and Boston was just that little bit better. They got the couple goals to go up 2-0, and it really did feel like after DeGraves scored that Penn State was going to tie it in the third period, and they just came up short. But they gave it everything they had in that game, and maybe just missing one or two pieces that could have gotten them over the hump in that game. Could they have beaten Western? Maybe. It's hard to know. But Western Michigan was also just the team that was built really well. They played into their system perfectly. So if you want to call them a team of destiny that year, maybe that fits. But everything just came together at the right time for them. So did Penn State have enough to beat Western? Don't know. It's hard to say. But now there's just so much talent top to bottom that I really don't know who is going to play where.
Probably be a chemistry thing.
Yeah.
Because you have that luxury. You don't have to force somebody out there just because they're your best player. Who plays the best alongside each other? That's what Guy Godowski can do with this kind of roster.
Yeah, and that might not be something we find out in October. It can take time to identify what lines are clicking. Serrato, Wiebusch, and DeMarco did not start the year together. No. The combinations that Penn State ended up with in the Frozen Four were not the lines that they had to start the season with. So sometimes things happen because of injuries and players are forced into different spots and magic happens because of that. Or you put three guys together or a pairing together earlier in the season and they're just off and running from there. You really don't know how it's going to play out. They have a lot of guys who have obviously played together now and have that chemistry already established. Does some of that have to change because of the players coming in? Really don't know. So it is a great question as to who's going to play where. Do you keep Serrato, DeMarco, and Wiebusch together because they had such a great season? Do you have to break them up to fit guys other places? Who are your centers going to be? Do you have a center that's now going to have to play wing because they have a lot of depth at that position now? Who's going to play with McKenna? Really don't know, but can't wait to find out that answer. That's for sure. It's just so exciting to have this much potential in a roster. But again, just because they have all this potential doesn't guarantee anything. Because you and I have talked about a few times already how Michigan has had loaded rosters. Minnesota has had loaded rosters, and it did not end up in a national championship. It's really hard to go and win a national championship in college hockey. So they're gearing up to give it their best run, and we'll see what happens once October starts.
Great pressure comes with great expectations. This is par for the course. This is the territory that Penn State has stepped into, and like we addressed, they are not finished. So coming up next here on Locked On Nittany Lions, what could Penn State do next with some of the other alleged reports out there that Gavin McKenna is not the last generational prospect to commit to this team? Well, we'll tell you about it after the break. And this episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Summer sports are in full swing, and whether you're all about baseball under the lights, golf on the green, or high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game even more exciting. And are you new to FanDuel? Because new customers can bet just $5 and you will get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. That's right, $150 to use on all of those sports that I mentioned: Major League Baseball, tennis, soccer, WNBA basketball, even Penn State football in the offseason. That's right, there are lines available for Penn State football, game lines, but also win totals. Do you think Penn State's going to have more than 10.5 wins? Do you think they're going to have less than 10.5 wins? If you like those lines, you can check them out over at FanDuel. And remember, if you are new to FanDuel, new customers can bet just $5 and you will get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com to get started. That's the FanDuel app or FanDuel.com to get started. So the two players, and Eric, maybe you can add some more context here as far as maybe if I'm missing anybody, but Gavin McKenna was one of those players. He was one of the puzzle pieces. Now the ones that are primarily left, Porter Martone, Philadelphia Flyers draft pick, top 10 selection in this year's NHL draft, and the brother of Luke Misa, who is already committed to Penn State, Michael Misa. If those two players join Penn State, I mean, everybody's going to, I mean, I know that Michigan State, Michigan, right, other top tier programs are pushing for them, so it's not a guarantee. But when all the professional hockey insiders are basically in lockstep with one another, alluding to the fact that Penn State should be expected to at least land one of these players, if not both.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens now over the course of July and August with both of these guys. They both have come out and said the goal is to make the NHL this season. So Martone's going to try to make the Flyers, and Misa's going to try to make the Sharks. If you had to lean one way or the other, I'd say Michael Misa probably has a better chance of sticking with the Sharks, just because he's kind of got that more mature game right now. He's a big, strong guy, a little bit older. So, and the Sharks are still in their rebuild. They're more likely to bring a guy in and, let him develop. But these teams also have to walk a line with their young prospects of when is it too early. You don't want to bring a guy in, have a really bad year, and all of a sudden,
sets them back.
Exactly. It puts a damper on their development. So organizations are trying to walk that line of bringing a guy in who could change the dynamic of your team because he's a first round pick, while also not hurting his development. So, I don't know what the rules are with timeline. Where is there a cutoff date that players can no longer come and join a team in college hockey? I don't know that, because you really don't see it happen. We don't have these situations where it's like, do you make the NHL or do you go play in college? It's pretty rare. And also, if these players sign their entry-level contracts, they have, a 10-game, they have 10 games before they can have to stick, or they can be sent back to juniors if need be. So there's that at play as well. Does that mean they could go to college? I don't know. Once they sign an entry-level contract, does that take them out of being able to go play college hockey? Those are some of the nuances that I just can't speak on, because I haven't researched that enough. So, don't know what's going to happen with Martone or Misa. Again, they both have said they're going to try to make their teams. Teams will have to tell them whether they have a good chance or not. Does it stretch into training camp? I don't know. And when is it too late for them to join a team? Does a guy join in September? I really don't know. But that's an interesting dynamic. And it's not just Penn State that's going to have that going on too. There's other teams out there that are going to be looking to add late, maybe with some of these prospects. And Michigan State, we know they're going to be hunting as well. And because of the trade that just went down on Tuesday with Edmonton, and now Isaac Howard signed his entry-level contract with the Oilers. So he's gone. He is going to Edmonton, and now Michigan State misses out on Gavin McKenna, and they
need to make a move. They have to.
They lose the Hobey Baker winner in Isaac Howard, who had a phenomenal year for the Spartans. He's a game changer, and now the Oilers get him. So Michigan State's got a hole that they are going to be looking to fill, I think.
If Martone and Misa happen to join Penn State, I mean, would this would make Penn State, I've already seen, again, some betting odds. People are posting screenshots. They would be the favorite to win the NCAA championship there, an NCAA title. Martone and Misa would only add to that. I don't know how you're only picking against, this is what I'm trying to encapsulate here, is that this team is almost to a point where it takes the fun out of trying to guess that Penn State is going to be the consensus pick across the board if they were even to add one of these prospects. That's how great Martone and Misa are respectively. And then if you add both, you're almost at that point, Eric, I think Penn State, the expectations would be insurmountable at that point, that anything that isn't them hoisting an NCAA trophy would be a disappointment if this were to happen.
Yeah, it certainly puts a lot of weight on the program and a lot of expectations. And they're going to have to figure out how to navigate that, because all of a sudden a lot more eyes are going to be on this team. And with that comes a much larger media presence. And that's something the program's going to have to navigate. A lot of people are going to be wanting to come to Pagula or wherever Penn State's playing to watch some of these players, and especially Gavin McKenna. So there's going to be a lot of outside noise going on and expectations. So they just have to figure out how to walk that line. And I know from being around the coaching staff enough and from being around Guy enough that they are going to do everything in their power to just shut all that out and go play hockey. That's all they can do, is just go play hockey. You take it one game at a time, you take it one shift at a time, and your end result is going to be what it is. But you cannot allow it to become more than that. You just have to go out and play a hockey game on a Friday night or a Saturday night. That is the only focus. And that's what this program has done such a great job of. And last year, when they started 0-8-1 in conference, it wasn't, oh my God, we have to go out and win X number of games to even have a chance of making the playoffs. You can't look at the big picture there. Yeah. You just have to keep sight on one game at a time. And that's what they did. They just chipped away at it, and they ended up making the Frozen Four because of it. So they have that experience going through the trials and tribulations of last season. And I think that that's going to help them with all this extra expectation and weight, that they just have to block out the noise and go play hockey and have fun. So we'll see what the lineup looks like. They have to find a good balance with the lineup too. You can't have four lines that their job is to just go score, because hockey's not built like that. You have to play defense at some point. Yeah. So you have to find balance in your lines to have a good line that can play defense well, be a shutdown, maybe go score. Dane Dowiak is a guy who he can play anywhere up and down the lineup. He's so strong, can play center, can play wing, great shutdown guy, penalty killer, but it can also go score goals if you need him to. So who can play with him? Where's your balance? You don't want to be too top heavy. Defensively, you don't want to have six defensemen that, again, are just trying to go score. You got to have guys that can play defense. You got to have strong goaltending. You have to defend as a unit. These are all those things that you need to have to build a great hockey team. So you look at the teams that win Stanley Cups. You look at the teams that win national championships in college hockey. It's not because they scored 9 goals a game. It's because they were a complete hockey team from top to bottom. And that's what Penn State's trying to build with all these additions.
And with these additions, the jargon now is, this is bad for college hockey. This is the worst thing that could happen to the sport. So let's address that debate. Is Penn State doing something bad for the entire sport? Well, we'll address it coming up next here on Locked On Nittany Lions. Penn State adds Gavin McKenna. There's still rumors swirling that Porter Martone and Michael Misa could join the team as well. And this is bad for the sport. At least that's what is being said. That's what's being thrown around. And we're not going to address the alleged report of $700,000 being given to Gavin McKenna. Again, we don't know how accurate that is, or even if that's the exact number. But that Penn State has built this hockey program. And Eric, I think where this all comes from is somewhat of a jealousy. If there are people that are affiliated with a team that, like Michigan or like Boston, I think there's a little bit of jealousy here. And it's not just about those two schools. It's anybody that is a top tier program at this point in time. But that this is somewhat inorganic, that Penn State doesn't deserve to have this kind of influx of talent, that what Guy Gadowski hasn't spent the past decade plus doing, it's because it's Penn State. I don't think as many people would have batted an eye if Michigan State had landed Gavin McKenna or Michigan or anybody else. It's because it's Penn State. Most people don't think that Penn State belongs here because they're still a new program, fairly, right? They haven't had a varsity team for that long of a time, that long of a stretch. If it was anybody else, hey, good for the program, that's a generational get type of thing. But because it's Penn State, that's the line that is being crossed.
Yeah, it's a fair argument for sure. And I don't disagree with you that that's what the narrative would be if Michigan had gotten McKenna or Michigan State or any of the other blue bloods in college hockey. It would have been, oh, this is just a great get for them because they've had so many first round talents at those programs. So many guys who have gone on and had unbelievable NHL careers. Now, college hockey has not had a player like Gavin McKenna, so it would still be a big deal for a Minnesota to get him or a Michigan to get him.
And it wasn't supposed to be Penn State. Right. That's my point.
Yeah. And like you said, there's always going to be people putting it down because it is Penn State, and there could be some of that jealousy. And look, the same conversations were happening when Penn State did go Division I and the Big Ten was formed. There were people out there that hated it. They hated Penn State purely because it broke up some of the traditional rivalries and broke up some of the traditional conferences to form the Big Ten. And there's people that still haven't let that grudge go against Penn State. So that's been a narrative of over a decade now that Penn State ruined college hockey. You can find that on any Twitter post, and you can go look it up. That's what people were saying. Penn State ruined college hockey because the traditionalists couldn't let go of the fact that, you know, the CCHA, the WCHA, like all these conferences weren't existing anymore. And you go to places like Minnesota and Michigan, you can see the banners hanging in the rafters of all those conference titles they've won in those leagues. And that's what people have known for a long period of time, for decades. And I can get it. You have that period of change in hockey, but now it's been over a decade. People haven't let that go. So that's still in the back of some people's minds. And now they see Penn State get some of these big names and get a Gavin McKenna, and it doesn't sit well with them. So all you can say is it's not like Penn State broke any rules to get here. You know, the CHL was open to everybody, and the NIL rules are open to everyone. So how Gavin came to his decision, don't know. Only he does, and the people he had those conversations with. But again, you know, to go back to the point that we had maybe the last time we talked or a couple times ago, that Gavin McKenna is not coming to Penn State to get a bag of money. There's just no reason. You're not going to sacrifice a year of your development if you think it's going to hurt you.
Yeah.
Now, again, is NIL a factor? Probably. Maybe, definitely. But I think the biggest reason he's coming here is because he sees it as a good fit and a place that he can spend a year to get ready for the draft and get ready to have a pro career and have success and try to win a national championship. So it's not like Penn State, you know, you see these college quarterbacks. It's not like Penn State wrote him a check for $8 million without the guy having played a snap in college. You know what you're getting. McKenna. But again, they also didn't, you know, back up the Brinks truck and hand him $6 million, $8 million just to come play for a year. So they played by the rules. They got the guy. And now with that, again, like we were just saying, comes with a lot of expectation, a lot of outside noise. So that's something they have to deal with. That comes with Gavin McKenna. Mm-hmm. But you do get the benefit of having a potentially generational talent and a game changer in college hockey. It's going to change the sport. It's going to change programs and schools being able to go out and get these best players in major junior for a year or two, or maybe even 3. And, you know, the fact that he puts his trust in Penn State for this coming season, I really think says a lot about what he believes in college hockey. And he said it on SportsCenter last night that he's ready for the opportunity and excited to play against some older guys, some you know, bigger and stronger guys. Because in college hockey, you might be going up against 22, 23, 24-year-olds who are essentially grown men at that point.
Yeah.
It's not an easy game, and especially in the Big Ten. You know, you see his highlight reel, and it's unbelievable. But the Big Ten is some pretty serious competition. That's for sure. So I think he relishes the opportunity to come and prove himself in this league and against some older, and stronger players, and have a year of development here where he can be just immersed in the resources that Penn State has as a program, to be in the weight room and to work with Christina Jeffries, the performance coach, who is just unbelievable. Players have raved and the staff has raved about what she has done to help develop.
Nobody talks about that.
Yeah. So he's got a great opportunity to get stronger, work on his skills, and have the resources that he might not have being back in major juniors.
Don't hate the player. Don't hate Gavin McKenna. Don't hate Penn State, the program, for all of this. Hate the game. This is the way that the game has changed now in all of college sports. So if you have a problem with it, it's not with Penn State. It's not with Gavin McKenna. But because it is new, because it is different, that's why people don't like it. That's where we're going to end things here on Locked On Nittany Lions. He is Eric Ohlson, color commentator for the radio broadcast team that covers Penn State men's hockey. My name is Zach Seyko, your host of the show. As always, thank you so much for checking out this episode. Leave a like, leave a comment. Let us know your thoughts down in the comments section. And Eric, thank you so much for the time as always. Really appreciate the conversation and can't wait to have a follow-up in the not too distant future.
Yeah, of course. Ready for October. Can't come fast enough.